It's RTX 5070 Ti release day, and I will be opening a beer for this review. However, I seriously contemplated simply going for a bottle of scotch. Before we get into it, today's video is brought to you by me. Head on over to craftcomputing.store for all of my official merch and help fund the content that you enjoy watching. I offer a full variety of merch, from laser-engraved nucleated pint glasses to stone coasters, even some insulated coffee tumblers, and some laser-engraved wallets, all of it designed and made right here in-house by me. We offer free shipping in the continental US for any order over $35, and flat-rate international shipping to 23 different countries. So if you want to help keep the lights on around here, head on over to craftcomputing.store today. And now, on to the video. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. So it is the third GPU launch in the last 4 weeks for Nvidia, and this time around we're talking about the RTX 5070 Ti. On the desk in front of me is the ASUS Prime version of the RTX 5070 Ti, as there's no Founders Edition GPU this time around. Nvidia and ASUS have also stated this GPU will launch for Nvidia's MSRP of $749, but we'll talk more about the price in just a little bit. In this video, I'm mostly going to be comparing the 5070 Ti to the RTX 5080, along with where the 5070 Ti lands as far as overall value and performance in the grand scheme of things. To kick things off, let's take a look at the specs for Nvidia's Blackwell series. The RTX 5090 launched around a month ago, and as I stated in my review video, really shouldn't be seen as a point of comparison for consumer GPUs. Sure, it's 30% faster than the RTX 4090, and literally twice as fast as the RTX 5080. But it's also $2,000 and basically unobtainium for all but the 1% of gamers out there right now. The RTX 5080, however, starts at $1,000 and comes equipped with Nvidia's GB203 GPU with 10,752 CUDA cores, 336 tensor cores, 84 ray tracing cores, along with 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory. The RTX 5070 Ti comes in at just $749, a full 25% less expensive, though you could argue that's pretty much right where it should be. It has the same GB203 GPU die, but cut down by around 20% in every possible spec. We've got just 8,960 CUDA cores, 280 tensor cores, and 70 RT cores. The memory is surprisingly still robust though, with the same 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 on the same 256-bit bus. Diving right into the benchmarks, starting with synthetics in 3D Mark, and the results are better than I expected if I'm being honest. In Firestrike Ultra, we've got a graphics score of 18,276 compared to the 5080 Founders card at 21,380. That's a difference of just 14.5%. TimeSpy Extreme shows similar results, with the 5070 Ti clocking in with an impressive 13,638 to the 5080's 16,420. Moving into benchmarks with ray tracing support, Port Royal falls right in line with just a 14% difference between the two cards, with a score of 19,265 for the 5070 Ti and 22,429 for the RTX 5080. And no prizes for guessing how Speedway turned out. 7,693 on the 5070 Ti, coming in just 14% shy of the 8,977 set by the RTX 5080. Moving on to gaming, and the results are, unsurprisingly, very similar to the synthetic results. Starting things off with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, at 1440p and supreme settings, we see an average of 169 frames per second with a 1% low of 138. Of course, that's with ray tracing at its lowest setting, and if you're going to spend $750 or more on a graphics card, you're probably going to want to turn on all the eye candy as well. With full path tracing enabled, along with DLSS, we manage just above 60 frames per second on average, coming in at 63.5. The game overall is also perfectly smooth, bottoming out at just 56 frames per second. Red Dead Redemption 2 may not have all of the modern ray tracing goodies, but it's still an incredibly demanding game at max settings. The 5070 Ti makes short work of it though, with an average of 117 FPS and a low of just 85. Just like our synthetic tests, that puts the RTX 5070 Ti only around 15% behind the $1,000 plus RTX 5080. A pretty solid result if you're able to find this card at MSRP. Again, more on that shortly. Cyberpunk 2077 is equally as impressive, coming in just 12% shy of the RTX 5080 in raw rasterization performance, and within 14% with full path tracing enabled. Now, unfortunately, there is but one graphics card in existence today that can run Cyberpunk with full path tracing enabled without the use of upscalers, and it costs $2,000. The 5070 Ti manages just 38 frames per second on average with all of the lights turned on. But to be fair, the 5080 isn't much better at just 44. What is a great experience, though, is enabling DLSS 4.0's Transformer model in performance mode, where we see the 5070 Ti run an average of 78 frames per second and a 1% low of 60, making it not only playable, but a pretty great experience overall. And given our native frame rate at 78, it makes enabling frame gen an overall great time too, with an average of 314 frames per second. Now, say what you will about multi-frame gen, but when it's good, it really is good. And a base frame rate of 78 FPS means latency is pretty much negligible, especially when Nvidia Reflex is enabled. I talked a bit more about it in my RTX 5090 review, and I'll have a link down to that one in the video description if you didn't catch it. In all of my testing this week, the 5070 Ti comes in at only 12% slower than the RTX 5080, despite having 20% fewer CUDA cores and a 25% lower price point. And according to online synthetic metrics, it's around a 16% uplift over the 4070 Ti Super and nearly 25% faster than the 4070 Ti. So we get substantially improved performance and a $50 price drop from the $799 price tag on the 4070 Ti and 4070 Ti Super, right? Well, not exactly. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on a very large project and have been poring over performance metrics for just about every graphics card made in the last 10 years. Plugging in my metrics from the 5070 Ti and the retail price of $749, it's one of the best performance per dollar card that has been released in that time span. Which makes the discussion around pricing all of that much more goddamn depressing. As I alluded to in my reviews of the RTX 5090 and RTX 5080, Nvidia has been using pricing to incentivize consumers to buy more and more expensive graphics cards over the last decade. Remember when the GTX 1080 launched at $599 and we thought the 2080 Ti was absolutely absurd at $1,000? Pepperidge Farm remembers. But between the complete unavailability of the 3000 series Ampere cards, price hikes to the 4000 series, including making the RTX 4080 a consumer flagship at $1,200, and the 90 series cards looking like a relative bargain at $1,600, prices have been creeping up by a couple $100 per tier for close to 10 years now. Add in the fact that Nvidia began directly competing with their AIBs like ASUS, MSI, EVGA, Gigabyte, and Zotac by offering Founders Edition cards with either higher bin GPUs or a lower MSRP, and you've been forcing your partners to buy GPUs from you and then sell them at higher price points to consumers. Let's take a look at the most recent example. With the RTX 5080, I reviewed both the Founders Edition card with an MSRP of $999, along with the Zotac Solid OC, which was priced at $1,149. But just a week after reviews went live, Zotac has already raised the price to $1,299, a full 30% above the price that Nvidia announced at their keynote at CES. Fast forward to today, and Nvidia has sent out this ASUS Prime RTX 5070 Ti and assured me that it was going to be at an MSRP price of $749. But even before launch, there are a pair of retailers in the US who have leaked pricing, with this exact GPU coming in at $899, a full 20% price hike. In fact, as of Sunday, there was only a single RTX 5070 Ti from PNY that was listed at the $749 MSRP, with every other model selling for between $899 and $1,009. An absolutely ridiculous price that puts the RTX 5070 Ti in direct competition with the RTX 5080, assuming you can ever find a Founders Edition card on the shelf again. Now, since writing that part of the script, I did reach out to Nvidia for comment, as is the correct thing to do in this situation, who promptly sent over an updated link to Micro Center's website where the ASUS Prime RTX 5070 Ti now appears at the quoted $749 MSRP. However, it is worth noting that the ASUS Prime is the only card besides the PNY I mentioned earlier at the MSRP price. But in my opinion, given how quickly after launch the Zotac 5080 Solid OC rose in price, I wouldn't put it past ASUS to price it right back at $899, bringing it back in line with basically every other model that's on the market today. While I want to praise the RTX 5070 Ti for being one of the best value graphics cards in quite a few years, in spite of its already high price of $750, even saying those words out loud feels disingenuous. The same with calling the RTX 5080 a $1,000 card, knowing full well that almost every single RTX 5080 sold from this point out is going to be north of $1,250 without even considering scalpers and secondhand pricing. Looking back just a couple of years, the RTX 3070 was a great GPU, despite having only 8GB of VRAM. It was a 1440p beast at the time, was well faster than the $1,000 RTX 2080 Ti from the previous generation, and had vastly improved performance and image quality when it came to both rasterization and upscaling tech like DLSS. But history will forever hate this card. Not because it was a terrible deal at $599, but because it never actually sold for $599. In fact, I bought this one near the height of the 2020 crypto boom for $1,000, and even I wish my rose-tinted glasses could be a little bit darker. At the current rate, the same fate is awaiting the RTX 5000 series of cards. Now, I'm posting this video on the embargo date of Wednesday, February 19th, and cards go for sale on February 20th. But by the time you even watch this video, most of the stock of the RTX 5070 Ti will probably have already vanished, with restocks not likely at most retailers for the next 3 to 4 months. Those that were able to buy a 5070 Ti likely also paid in the neighborhood of $900 to $950, hundreds of dollars above the $750 price point that Jensen claimed up on stage just 6 weeks ago. But regardless of how good this GPU may be, much like the RTX 5090, there just aren't that many people who will ever get to use one. Which is a damn shame, because according to my charts, it's roughly the 5th fastest graphics card ever made. At $749, it would be one of the best performance per dollar cards ever released by Nvidia. And that's it. That's my review. It's 25% faster than an RTX 4070 Ti, 15% faster than an RTX 4070 Ti Super, and just 12% behind catching the RTX 5080. The ASUS Prime variant is a 300-watt card that runs fast, quiet, and cool, and I desperately want you to be able to buy the card for what I was told should be the asking price of $749. Instead, you're either going to have to camp out at a Micro Center or Best Buy parking lot, or enter a real gamer lottery being hosted by one of the AIBs if you want an actual shot of buying one of these for less than $1,500. Until there is meaningful competition in the GPU market, Nvidia can do basically whatever they want when it comes to pricing, controlling the market through availability and demanding whatever terms they want out of their board partners. Rest in peace, EVGA. AMD's RX 9070 cannot come soon enough, and we can only hope that it brings with it competitive performance and a competitive price point. And much more importantly than all of that, enough stock so gamers can actually buy one. Technology and performance-wise, I have literally nothing bad to say about the RTX 5070 Ti. It's one of the fastest cards in existence today. It has 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory on a 256-bit bus, and it cuts through 1440p ultra content like butter. With DLSS enabled, it's also a formidable 4K option. But even at a couple dollars above that $749 MSRP, that veneer starts to wear a bit thin. There are no bad video cards, only bad prices. And without incentive for Nvidia to actually hit that $749 price point that they talked about, people are going to hate this card just as much as they hated the RTX 3070 that came before it. Much like my review of the RTX 5090, this is an incredible graphics card, and I wish you all got the chance to run one in your rig. And I hope that happens someday soon, but the future prospects aren't looking bright. Anyway, in the meantime, I'll have links that I can provide down in the video description on where to buy one, but by the time you click on them, they're probably going to be gone. In the meantime, like this video, drop me a subscription, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think of the RTX 5070 Ti and where it lands on your radar. If you like the content you see on this channel and want to help support me in what I do, consider joining the Patreon. Link is also down in the video description and gets you access to my exclusive Discord server, where you can chat with myself and the other hosts from Talking Heads, as well as the awesome community that hangs out over there all through the week. That's going to do for me in this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Hopefully with better news. Cheers, everyone. Beer for today is a timeless classic from Sierra Nevada. It is the Cosmic Little Thing Hazy Double IPA, clocking in at 8%. It's... Damn it. You try to talk and nothing comes out. That was great. Hope the rest of the video goes better.